Welcome back, everyone. As always, I am your host, Nolan, and I am a broke student just like most of you. Let me make sure I have everything to start the video. Cheap whiteboard markers? Check. Low production quality? Check. And of course, humorous, wait, no, sorry, we couldn't afford that. Let's get to it. For this episode, I want to talk about atoms, elements, molecules, and compounds. Now, you may have heard those used interchangeably, but they do have slight differences from one another, so let's get to it. Elements, in general terms, an element is anything you can see on the periodic table. So something like hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, any single thing on there is an example of an element. Now, an atom is pretty much an element. More specifically, though, they are composed of protons and neutrons in the nucleus, protons being positively charged and neutrons having no charge or neutral charge. And then they're surrounded by an electron cloud. We'll get more into that later on, but for now, just know electrons are negatively charged. They're outside of the nucleus. Protons and neutrons are actually in the nucleus itself. Now, a compound is a combination of two or more different elements. Now, this is important because this differentiates them from molecules. So a compound has to be two different elements. A molecule, on the other hand, can be a combination of two elements. They don't necessarily have to be different elements. Okay, so now let's get into some examples of these. So on the left-hand side here, we have H, and H just means hydrogen. Now, if you look at the periodic table, you will see that hydrogen is on there, and it's just one box of the periodic table. So that must mean that hydrogen is either an atom or an element. We'll call it an atom in this case. Keep in mind, what I said earlier, they are kind of interchangeable. Atom's a little bit more specific. Sorry about my camera going in and out of focus. Nothing I can do about that. Now, NaOH is called sodium hydroxide. So it has an Na element or atom, an oxygen atom, and then a hydrogen atom. Now we have four different atoms bound to one another in this case. And we said before that a molecule has to have at least two atoms bound to one another, and that a compound has to be made up of at least two different molecules, or at least two different atoms. So in this case, it can be either a molecule or a compound. Now, more specifically, this is a compound. So if you saw that on an exam and those are both choices, compound would be the better choice to go. Now let's go to the next one, HCl. So this is a hydrogen and a chlorine atom that are bound to one another. So is this going to be considered a molecule or compound? Well, same thing as the last one. There are two different atoms that are bound to one another, so they must be both a molecule and a compound. Now, let's move on to the very last one, Cl2. Now this has two chlorines bound to one another. So in this case, it cannot be a compound because there are two of the same atoms bound to one another. So this looks like Cl-Cl. And this dash right here just means that these two atoms are bound to one another. So because there are two of the same atoms and they're not different atoms, we're going to just simply call it a molecule, not a compound. So hopefully that made sense, and let me know if I can answer any more questions or clarify any of this at all. And until next time, see you guys later.